To me, it was a re-recruiting of your own players to play in the bowl game, to have some pride in your program, and he couldn't do it. Right. You saw they lost 27 players before that bowl game. To me, that's not building a culture.
That is a perfect situation. Okay, so you've been disrespected by the committee. You've got a game against another team that was disrespected and was arguably probably still the number one team.
And Doug, correct me if I'm wrong, but Kirby managed to bring most of his players to that bowl game.
Absolutely, but Florida State had such an opportunity that day.
Yeah, they had such an opportunity, and if he was such a good program builder, culture builder, you couldn't keep 27 of your players to go play one more game. Now,
they go out and they beat Georgia. They go out and beat Georgia close. They don't even have to talk about it anymore. Everybody else would have been talking about it.
You would have had a national narrative of college football fans from the East Coast all the way to the West Coast if Florida State had brought their players back and beaten Georgia, even close, even by a field goal, even by a station. You would have had everyone ringing the bell for Florida State. And when they didn't show up, particularly with 27 of their players, first line, second line, it showed you don't really give a shit. This was all smoke.
We're talking about the first game out.
Yeah. No, it proved that this is part of the NIL transfer portal silliness of these were all kind of hired guns. You had a great season. I'm sorry, we're not feeling bad for you because you lost the quarterback. Lots of teams lose quarterbacks.
Non più tra I farfalloni amoroso, notte giorno di torno girando, delle belle turbando al riposo, ma ci settuato giro d'amor. Delle belle turbando al riposo, ma ci settuato giro d'amor.
Welcome college football fans to another weekly installment of
Your Team Sucks Donkey Balls
with Dr. Balls.
I just feel like that he has been lackluster at Florida State, even with the gaudy record last year. That players didn't commit, right? They didn't.
It's a weird thing that because he has been lackluster, but at the same time, he's got them to places that they haven't been in a while. So it's really an oddity. But he's done so in the most ass way possible. I think everybody can agree with that. He's utilizing the portal, and he's doing well at it. But he's got a bunch of players he had players last year. They got dissed and were the first team out, and they didn't even show up for the fucking bowl game.
Yeah, that's unbelievable.
And they really earned this going back to last year, in my opinion.
I agree with that. And and the guys that did return didn't show up. I mean, their front seven was highly touted this year, and they got pushed around by Georgia Tech. Georgia Tech was able to subjugate Florida State to their will and had drives of 6, 7, 8 minutes. And then when Florida State kicked the game off in a manner, they scored quick. But after that, they didn't have any answers. They couldn't get the ball back. When they did, they failed a fourth down possession that mattered. Long field goals. Basically, Georgia Tech controlled the game. So Ukulele or DJ Ukulele, I feel that he was to form in the game, and that all that Florida State could do with him is use him as a supplement to the run game. Take an extra guy out of the box because his arm ain't there, his decision making ain't there, and that's why, along with Coach Norvell and his lack of ability to build cohesiveness on team, means that if you're a Florida State fan, your team sucks donkey balls.
That's a fact. But let me just take up for DJ for a minute. He didn't play a terrible game, and unbelievably, both teams really played solid games. There was no turnovers in the game, which I found pretty strange for a first game of the year. But here's the numbers that stood out to me and probably determined the game. Georgia Tech had 190 yards rushing on the ground, and Florida State had 98 yards rushing.
Oh yeah, and the 36 carries for 36 carries for Georgia Tech, and there were only 3 tackles for loss, by the way, against them.
And that's leading me to my next stat that really blew my mind is Georgia Tech, 5.3 yards per rush. And you're not going to lose many games if you're rushing for more than 5 yards a carry.
No, you're not. And if you're going to control the clock to that manner and wear out the other team's front seven, you're going to win the game. I mean, it's just that simple. And it's Georgia Tech is touted as being a mid-pack team in the ACC. You'd think that Florida State, with the returning talent and their highly touted defensive line, would push them around, but the opposite happened. In my opinion, Georgia Tech pushed Florida State around.
DJ Ukulele or whatever his name is, I'm sure Dane could tell us if he was here. 19 of 27. Not really bad numbers. They didn't really have a lot of yards per catch. So yeah, this was a short passing game, and I'm guessing the way the game ended up going, I'm guessing that Georgia Tech gave them that short passing game.
Oh yeah, and they were never, and even the receivers that you thought might be good was unable to break free for big gains, and he wasn't able to get the ball to him anyway. I didn't see him taking very many chances deep, and I don't know that they have confidence in the quarterback and the wide receiver at Florida State based on their play call, and it was very conservative.
A lot of times if a team decides they're going to give you something, there's a reason they're doing that. And I think we've seen what that reason was, the way this game ended up. And Georgia Tech on the ground, I mean, I don't know. This Georgia Tech team it could be a little of both, that Florida State got caught napping a little bit and Georgia Tech is just – this team is they're coming together, and I'm really impressed with this coach.
Oh, absolutely. And, they played – it was a neutral site, so it's really a good gauge of the teams in terms of fairness, right? And it's historic for being in Dublin. And I think the coach is a big change for Florida. Former Georgia Tech coaches who wanted to establish systems, and then I think that his system, which seems to be way more flexible than what's happened in the past, might be a way forward in the ACC. And in this ACC, Doug, I think that Georgia Tech has a chance to compete. If two teams come out of the ACC and go to the CFP, Georgia Tech might be able to make a case that there'll be one of them.
Wouldn't that be exciting?
Yeah, I'd enjoy that, because Georgia Tech's a traditional power, and they've been down by their standards for a little while, but they've won a national championship as recently as 1990, I believe.
Yep.
And so we know that it's possible. It's a great recruiting region. I mean, and obviously the coaching is solid there. The physicality is solid there. But if you're Florida State, you should be dominating Georgia Tech. And they didn't, so their team sucks donkey balls.
It does. One of the things I've been seeing is probably a lot of the Gators fans basically saying that Florida State just got eliminated from the playoffs. And it's a little early for that. It's a little early for that. We don't know how good Georgia Tech is. If Georgia Tech isn't very good, that loss is obviously going to hurt. Georgia Tech rolls off 4 losses in a row.
Oh, yeah.
The strength of loss. See, strength of loss is big. It's almost as big as strength of wins, because if you're a team with a loss, that's how you get measured against the other teams to have the same record.
And they're not going to
who did you lose to?
They're not going to have very many opportunities to play teams other than Clemson and so forth. They're not really have a big opportunity to play teams that are seen as being CFP teams. So they have to take every opportunity. Now they really can't lose, in my opinion, because you look at them last year, they went 13-0 and didn't make the CFP. Even in the expanded playoff, right? If your team didn't play nobody and you didn't perform in the big games, and it comes down to you at 10-2 against another team at 10-2 that played somebody and played them close, they're going to pick the other team.
Absolutely. It's the whole thing's. What do you think about Mike Norvell? Are we too early to be talking hot seat? Because I've seen a couple FSU people already calling for him to be fired, and I think it's a little early, because, like I said earlier, he's got them to a place they haven't been in a while. It's just been a little lackluster since they've gotten here.
Yeah, I agree. And
they've dropped the ball a couple times. They really needed to show up last year and play Georgia with everything they had.
Yeah, they didn't do it, and that was an opportunity to be a great bowl game, right? Even though it was just right outside of the CFP, the matchup was huge. There was a case to be made by both teams that they should have been in the CFP.
Man, I'll go further than I did on the last episode when I said that if they would have beat Georgia close, they would have had a big argument.
Yeah.
I think even if they would have lost to Georgia close, they could have said we belonged in the CFP, and they would have had some people nationally that would have taken up for them. But what they did, it just made everybody say, "Fuck those guys! They didn't belong." They proved they didn't belong.
Oh yeah, I believe that it was more of the same this weekend, and that's whether or not that's why that Norvell is going to be judged early by some fans that may be a bit hysterical, but the fact of the matter is, when the big opportunities come up, if you don't make them, then that's not what Florida State is looking for. Florida State wants to be relevant every year, the way they were historically, and that's not the way to do it.
No, definitely not the way to do it. All right, so congratulations to Mike Norvell, the Florida State Seminoles, and the FSU Nation. Your team sucks donkey balls, right?
That's absolutely right. Week 0. Winner.
Week 0, and we'll be back next week, and we're going to be fucking with somebody else.
Oh, yeah. They might even be a live champion in the end, too.
All right, Bob. We'll see you next week.
Thank you so much.
Later.
Streaming every Monday evening at 10 p.m. Eastern for an all-new Your Team Sucks Donkey Balls.